The holiday often comes with a hero, and between the Giants and the Cowboys, DeMarvion Overshown making his presence felt. Falling on a fumble after this, I don't know if you call it a trifecta, but blows up the block, tips it in the air, locates, catches, and takes it to the house. A massive moment in what was a touchdown victory over the Giants. Rico Dowdle also featured the first 100-yard rusher in a single game by the Cowboys in 26 games. Add it all up, it's a victory for the first time this season in Arlington for those Cowboys, who are now 5-7 on the season. For more, we take you out to Jerry's World, where CBS NFL writer Garrett Podell is standing by to offer his thoughts. And I want to start right there with the star of the game. I don't know if he got the turkey leg or if it's just one of those things when you see it and you know it, but the star of this game certainly felt like DeMarvion Overshown announcing himself here to a national audience. You got to speak with him after the game in the locker room. What was his sort of tenor following this one? Had to been celebratory.
That's right, Joe. I did get to talk to him after the game, and I would say it was more grateful or an air of gratitude than anything else, because DeMarvion Overshown is somebody who tore his ACL in the preseason a year ago. So even though it's his second season, it's essentially his rookie year. And, you know, what he said to me was, I just had to turn on the nitrous. You're seeing the play there on your screen. He said, I saw the screen coming, and when the running back let him go and stopped blocking him and started drifting toward the left, he knew a throw was coming, and he hit the turbo, tipped it up in the air, and then he said he had to kick the pedal down a few more notches to get that interception, and he was elated to get his first defensive touchdown of his career. And Micah Parsons also told me, look, I see a little bit of number 11, which is Parsons' number, in Overshown. He said Overshown's his own guy. He's not trying to be Micah Parsons 2.0. But Micah said, I've been telling you guys since day one, this is a future All-Pro. So the Cowboys are embracing Overshown's performance and feeling like there's a lot more to come from this youngster.
That was some I love me, some me from Micah Parsons, who also had his presence felt in this victory as well. Mike McCarthy, as the head coach of this team, it's come under question not just this year, but in years prior, and the one-year contract obviously made this a tryout, and many people already had his fate sealed following some of the struggles earlier on. I'm not saying these wins solve anything, but can you give us a sense of where the franchise is at right now as it pertains to the head coach after these two wins?
I would say the temperature certainly cooled around the franchise. I mean, if you'd walked through the locker room a few weeks ago during this 5-game winning streak, I mean, people were tense. Micah Parsons was saying, I'll just eat the fine instead of talk to the media. They were down in the dumps here in Dallas, but these last two wins have really re-energized the building. And when I was speaking to cornerback Jordan Lewis, this was on Tuesday before tonight's game, he told me after the Commanders game, there's kind of this air of belief that we can play good football and we can win out. So they believe that they can win these games. Now, Sportsline ran a projection of that before tonight, and it was just under 1% that they could win all these games, 0.6%, about a 1.5% chance they made the playoffs entering tonight's game. So they won tonight, so those odds might shift a little in the positive direction. But this is a team that's starting to believe, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Talking to Overshown and veteran linebacker Eric Kendricks, who played with Zimmer in Minnesota, they attribute a lot of their early season struggles to both injuries and acclimating to Zimmer's scheme, which asks for a lot more disguise and a lot more responsibilities per player than Dan Quinn's scheme of the last 3 years. So they feel like this is a defensive unit that is really coming together, both with the scheme, and guys are starting to come back healthy with Parsons back and Deron Bland back in the fold.
Yeah, it's going to be a whole bunch of teams fighting over that 7 seed, likely the only one still mathematically. Yes, I know things are out in front of us, but that's the one up for grabs, and they do have a head-to-head now, taking a look at some of the division play in front of them, and a win here against the Giants mathematically eliminates the Giants from playoff contention. Anytime you can do that to a rival, you'll take that as well. So much to celebrate here on the holiday, and maybe the Cowboys not the celebratory air that they expected this season with that 11-win floor that they've set in years past, but when you got a sense of that crowd taking in their first win of the season, always great to win at home on the holiday, never good when that's your first win of the season at home. What did this crowd give you, and did it feel different than the rest of this season?
Joe, I would say it definitely does feel a little bit different here at AT&T Stadium. And to quote Mike McCarthy from earlier in the week, when he was asked about his job security, He said, look, I'll take any and all positive vibes. And that was kind of the night here for the Cowboys. I mean, they announced an attendance of over 90,000, but if you looked in the stands, there were probably a few more empty seats than Thanksgiving's past in those years when they ripped off 12 straight wins 3 years in a row. But yeah, it was kind of a sense of relief. And I actually did the math. So it's been 334 days between tonight, their latest home win, and their previous one, which was Jimmy Johnson night back in week 17 against the Lions, when they won that 20-19 game in which Detroit controversially had some O-linemen eligible or ineligible on their 2-point conversion plays at the end of that game. So I'd say definitely a sense of relief. And to go back to McCarthy real quick, I would say that the reason everyone's on these one-year deals in terms of McCarthy and his coaching staff is because of that Packers game. Jerry explained to me after their preseason finale this year against the Chargers that he felt like angst and urgency would kind of be a swift kick in the rear, to paraphrase Jerry, in terms of getting people's best production. And that's why Mike McCarthy and his staff are on those one-year deals that, you know, they're not exactly comfortable with, but they're starting to turn around the performance as the team gets healthier and healthier. And I think that's something that you'll see here down the stretch, them looking more competitive. And speaking of health, one quick note. So CeeDee Lamb, he left this game in the third quarter and didn't come back. They never in the press box, when there are injuries, they announce and say, so-and-so is questionable with fill-in-the-blank injuries. They never did that with Lamb, and they showed him on the sideline. Mike McCarthy confirmed at the press conference after the fact that he did re-aggravate his shoulder that he first tweaked against Atlanta. I think it was back in week 9, and he hit that shoulder in that game like 3 times. But Lamb told me both this week and the prior week that he really prides himself on his toughness and durability and being out there every single week. I think this sort of mini bye, because they don't play again until December 9th on Monday Night Football against the Bengals, will really help him have a chance to go and play again in week 14.
Yeah, missed much of this one as well with that shoulder injury. We'll see if he can get right, but multi-possession lead, no need to have him out there putting it in harm's way. Now some time to get right. Before we let you go, I know it's odd because you don't get owners talking after every week. That is, unless you're talking about the owner of the Dallas Cowboys, but that only makes it to air often when the sky is falling. How about when you string a couple together? What did Jerry have to say after this one?
He was, unfortunately for us here in the media, relatively calm and composed. And he said, look, what the plays DeMarvion Overshown made is what we envisioned him doing when we drafted him in the 3rd round a couple years ago. And look at Rico Dowdle. He's got 100 yards, and he really sees that as a sign that they can run the ball, especially with a younger offensive line that even had some injuries tonight. No Zach Martin, left tackle Tyler Guyton. He suffered a high ankle sprain in the game and did not return. But Jerry, he was grateful. He wasn't boastful. You know, we've seen Jerry really strut his stuff after some big wins. But in a season like this, that they're 5-7, it was more, I guess, relief that they took care of business on Thanksgiving. Because this is a game that, even though everyone says, oh, it's just another regular season game, Jerry takes a little extra pride in these Thanksgiving home games.
Oh, certainly so. It is a national audience and one that finally got to see a win from the Cowboys. Garrett, we appreciate your information as always. Go get some dessert, would you?
Will do. Happy Thanksgiving, Joe.
Same to you. Taking a look at the longest win streaks against the Giants, 8 and counting. So no need to boast. This is just the way it goes. A winning streak against the division rival rolls on.